Hey there, Russ here. Welcome back to the shop. All right, we're going to talk about circular saw. Now, right here at first, let's talk a little bit about circular saws in general. But then the main reason I'm doing this video is to show you my dust collector and how I built it for my circular saw. I've actually got several different hand circular saws. Some are operated by battery, some are operated by just plugging them in. But I've got dust collection is something that's just horrible on these things. So I did make a dust collection dust shield for mine, and it works beautifully. And I can tell you now that if you did one, you'd collect 95% of the dust. So anyway, first let's talk about saws in general, because all this applies to what I have done and why I've done what I've done. We're going to talk about my P506. It's a Ryobi battery operated 18 volt, and it's not even on the market anymore as far as this particular model. And this is one of the best little saws I've had. And this was the first one that I built the dust collection for. Since I built it for this one, I've built it for a couple others that I have that I also tend to use more often. The only time I use the dust collection is if I'm inside using this thing. I don't need to use it when I'm outside. Just let the dust go. So anyway, one thing about my tools, I don't like to make modifications to them, including my circular saws. But I did make one modification to this saw, and as a result, I started doing it to all my other saws too. That has to do with this guard right here. Now, they tell you this is a safety guard for your safety, but actually, back when they first started making these saws, I think in the 50s, whenever it was, they had this on there, but that wasn't for your safety. Back then, they didn't care about your fingers. They made things so bad, no safety thing on them at all. This was on there to protect this when you set it down, so it would not try to walk away on you or damage what you set it on. It was so that the contractor can set the saw down faster and keep going. So now that after a while they go, oh yeah, we put that on there for safety. So they call this a safety guard. That's not what it's for. But the problem is that sometimes you really want to get it up out of the way, but they never give you that capability. You have to manually hold it. So what I did is, and it's the only modification I made, and it's a great modification on these saw. Most of the time, this does work free. I don't lock it back. But there are times when I need to lock it back, whether because of the way I'm using it or because I put my dust collection on it. Because with the dust collection, this will have to be out of the way. So I put a little pin right here. It's actually a drill bit. You can see here the back end of the drill bit. And one of those that go on the Allen shape. I forgot what they call these. But anyway, it comes through here. It's a 1/16 inch drill. I took one of my old ones. And now, so this sticks out about, maybe a quarter of an inch or so. This thing is flexible enough that I can bring it back, pull it up over it, and it flips back under it. So now it's holding this. It's such a great way to all of a sudden put a stop on here. And you could probably do this by just gluing a pin there of some kind, or some kind of piece of wood with some hot glue or that. I chose to put the pin through this way, but you just want to have some kind of stop here so that this is up out of your way. But you do have to be careful. See that when the blade is sticking out, that thing is always there. So you do want to be aware of that when you do this. So I'm going to unlock this back out of the way for most of the rest of what I'm going to show you here. But actually, I made the dust collection for this thing in two pieces. And one of them is the bottom plate, and the other one is the side plate. Rather than building it all in together, I wanted to keep the minimum of loss of depth of cut. I wanted to keep that to a minimum. So let's talk about the base plate here. First thing I did is I just made a base plate that is the same shape. Try this way. This is pretty close to the same shape of what I have. Now what lines it up and holds it on, quite simply, I have 3 magnets on there that I recessed so they're flush. And so now that's what holds it to the plate. In order to make it line up, all you have to do is, you'll notice that on these saws it has this wide opening here, and it's always some kind of odd shape. But all you do is that once you cut this piece and you line it up to your edges all the way around, and you set it down on here, then you can come back and lay these pieces, another piece of the same thin plywood that you use here, and put it right here. And shape it so that it fits in there snugly when this thing is sitting in this position. Then that gives you these pieces here go up into the recessed area and give you that alignment that is necessary. So it just clips on, and once it clips into place, it's on there in place, already set. If you don't have a magnetic base, some saws don't have a magnetic base, you not only going to have to put magnets on your plate, but you'll have to also, on the underside, on the top side here of your plate, of your saw, you may have to put a corresponding magnet and glue it down so that these magnets will go through this material and go to that one. That'll take a pretty strong magnet if you're going to have to double up your magnets and go through material. The other thing to keep in mind, I used 1/2 inch, 1/16 of an inch thick rare earth magnets, and I have 3 of them here. You want to make sure you get not too much magnetism, but you definitely want enough that it holds on there pretty good. And there's no way that'll ever come off, and it won't slide off because the magnets are holding it in. That makes this a pretty good and a pretty safe. After you've done this and you cut your slot, now you have a 0 clearance. This covers this hole now completely, which is what you want for dust collection. So this thing is turning clockwise. So it's cutting into the wood and spitting it up this way. And theoretically, it should all go up here, up through here. Obviously, it does not. But a lot of it actually pushes straight forward, too. You get a lot of spray out at the front of the saw right in this area coming out. So when I designed the cover, first thing I wanted to do is get something over this side so that I could restrict the amount of area that is the airflow of where everything can go. Let me bring this down a little bit. So, first thing I want to do is make that shield for this shield there. So that's what I did here. I had this shield right here. Whoops. I think this is in my way. Raise it up just a hair. And believe it or not, it just pops in. Most of the time, it just pops right in. That is why this is setting back here, is so that I did this cutout here to allow this to be at this point, and this still fits on there, and it pretty much covers this area now here. Now, of course, it's not airtight. It doesn't have to be. When it comes to sawdust and chips, you just have to guide them like you do a herd of cats. You just generally get them going the right direction, and hopefully they all follow that current, and because they'll tend to follow that current pretty well. And sometimes they will go off on their own tangent and come out somewhere else, but most of it will follow the current. So the smaller that area that the current is flowing in, the faster it'll be able to pick all that stuff up, and the less that will go out in other directions. So the chamber underneath here now, with this bottom plate and this side plate here, this is my chamber area, and anything that's out in this area all gets sucked back right in through here, this part here, and this is where I cut the hole for the vacuum hose to set up to. So this plate here has to be able to sit down on there with this thing locked back, and I also have a hole a little off-center toward the back more, so that, because that's where a lot of it's going to come out. And by doing that, this area around here is all got high suction area on it, so any dust coming out of that right here will tend to either go up there or go over this direction. A little bit goes on the back, but most of that will follow it around and come back around anyway, it seems like. So it seems to work pretty well. If you still don't get good collection, you can make a piece to fit on this side to help block that off more if you wanted to, so that you can reduce the amount of open area that's here. So you can just put a small, simple spacer piece in here, maybe even make something out of rubber that you can shove in there when you set this up. It doesn't even have to be a piece of wood, just maybe a piece of foam rubber you can push in here that will stay put. And that would be sufficient, because the smaller you make this chamber with the fewer holes, areas for the air to have to suck in through, the more it's going to suck all that dust that is being spit out on the upward stroke of that saw blade. Now, this thing fits down into this little channel area right here. Let me raise this back up a little bit. Okay. It is a tight fit to get it in there, because this shield here is what goes at the front of the saw right here. Because the air, everything is coming out right at the front of the saw blade where it's coming out of the wood. So all of that stuff is right here. You have to block that off. And that's what this piece here does. Right there. So on this plate, I put this little shield right here, and it has to fit under here. So no matter how high up you put this, that makes this get lower and lower. So pay attention to your movement of this tip, and make sure that when it's in its upper position, this piece isn't too tall to fit underneath there. So, but I just made my own shape, something that sat there, and that's all it really took. This shield that's on the plate does a so-so job, but it was really still a lot on this one in particular. It was coming out here a lot. This thing could have been a lot taller, and that probably would have taken care of it. And I wouldn't even had to put this piece on there at all. This very front piece, I wouldn't need it if this was taller. So, but I put it on there just to help that dust. All that sawdust that's coming out of that blade right there, a lot of it was spitting out straight forward from the saw. So, if you can block it off on the saw and never be obtrusive and always be on there, you can do that, and that'd be a good way to do it too. So, but when I put this piece on there, I did reinforce it with a piece here to going into it, and I also put I put it through this way. I put a bamboo skewer at an angle, so it goes through this piece, and this piece, and had it all glued in. So that helps give this thing the strength it needs. On the back area here, that has to also fit around my particular guide right here. So in order to fit that, first off, let me just say, this right here, I have this little gutter area on the plate, and that's like 1/4 inch wide. So when I put this 1/4 inch material down in there, I made sure it dropped all the way down to the plate. And then when I put this piece on, it fits at the back end. You're not getting a very good picture. It's getting at the back end right here. This piece is coming in. And this is the magnet that's holding it in place right here. I have a little magnet right here so that it locks it right here, and that's on the side against here. So I have to put that around my piece. I tuck this piece down in there. Then it just fits in there until it gets in far enough that it drops down into this slot right here. Once it drops down, then this is now connected to the that magnet is now connected in here. So this thing is on there now. It's not going to come off now. And that's the way I use it. This hole is a good location for that vacuum. I don't know. I didn't try and put it in different places, but that seems to work pretty good right there. But I would like to put an elbow on here that moves, so when I stick my hose on there, and it can be any direction. This right now it comes straight out. I don't really like that when the hose is hooked up on this side, coming straight out. I would like it to be coming out toward the back of the saw instead, I think. So that's a minor thing. I haven't taken care of that, but it does work. But this is the whole thing all put together. I have it locked back, and then I put the two pieces on separately. This one, I can get it off. This one's the bottom, and this one is the side plate in here. So that's why all this area, once I put the plate on the bottom, all of this area is tight enough that the airflow to the vacuum hose is much stronger, because it's not sucking air from underneath here anymore. All the air has to come from over here into the saw, so all of it then has to find its way over here to the hole. So I'm basically blocking off two sides of this, and that has increased the amount of air that has to flow to the shop vac. It's reduced it so that the dust has to follow the airflow much better. So it's pretty simple. If you don't have enough, then you have to find another way to close up a little more of this area. That's why I said you could take and have this thing that when it's in at the height you want it, maybe have a piece of rubber that you have roughly cut that can be slipped into here. And that would decrease the chamber size, and the amount of air that can come in would be blocked from here. So only all these little areas, it would make that flow even better. So that's really the whole idea of how to get it to suck the dust, is you have to kind of guide it. Look for where your biggest air coming in to come out the shop vac, and wherever that's going in, if you don't get enough suction to pick up all the dust, find a way to block off those areas by tucking something in there or something. So I haven't done it yet, but I could probably just shove something in here, and that would really dramatically improve it more. That's the whole thing. I hope I didn't overdo this. I wanted to tell you, though, the gentleman, Paul, asked me about this dust collector and about how I made it. I hope that all this close-up will give him a better idea of how to make your own. Like I said, if you're making it for a leather saw, you're not going to do it exactly like this, but you do want to remember, you do have to figure out a way to lock this back if you're going to put a plate on the front here. Now, I will tell you that some of these saws have their own vent where you can just plug the hose right in there. Now, you probably don't need to do this side hole if you have that and you do everything. This plate being there will allow most of that sawdust then to be really sucked up into here, so that all that dust is spitting out. The only other thing to watch out with a built-in chute, you also got to remember it's going to try to come out the front here, the saw. And the reason this is on there, not to reduce the amount of air suction, but it is to stop that force of that sawdust from shooting out of there. Because once it comes out here and it's sawing, the amount of vacuum right here isn't near as important as it is to block that, so that it has to go somewhere else. Then it's more likely to find its way to the shop vac hose. Okay, I'm done rambling. I want to thank you for coming by on this. I hope this helps you to build your own. If you have any questions about any of this, let me know. Remember that on all your 90-degree joints, you want to try to put bamboo skewers in there. That really does help make it so much stronger. So, because quite frankly, this thing, when I take it off, this thing would go on and off a lot easier without this front shield. I think that if I do it again, I will probably figure out some way to put a shield on the front here instead. This then would drop in very easily. So, but you want to make sure this is good and strong, even though that's 1/4 inch to 1/4 inch. And I did reinforce it with some bamboo skewers. If you have room on the inside right here, on this corner right here, if you have room to put a corner block and glue it in there, you can also bamboo skewer through that and make this joint even stronger. So the height here is, on mine, hits this thing here. So I've set it so that when I put it down all the way, I have an inch capability of cutting through. So 1 inch is about all I would use with this saw anyway. On my other one, I didn't put that stop there, but maybe if you really wanted to, you could put together some idea of how to have a adjustable stop here, so that when this is in there, you don't need to use this. You would use this as your stop. Drop it down. Anyway, those are just some of my thoughts about it, but it does go on and off relatively easily, and I really haven't made any modifications to it in order to use this, other than I did put a lock on this shield. So, any thoughts, any questions, leave them down below. For those of you that watch me regularly, I just want to go back real quick. The LED bulb. I have come to the conclusion that there is more bad LED light fixtures out there than there are good ones. I will tell you now. And I don't think it's always price driven, but I have figured out one thing. If you're going to buy a bulb, whether it's from Amazon, off of eBay, or even at a grocery store, you want to look at it and see where the warranty and the warranty information is. I went out to Amazon and I could not find any warranty information on virtually any LED light bulb they have for sale. They refer you back to the manufacturer, but nobody ever tells you who the manufacturer of the thing is, because where you bought it, it's not there either. So you really would have a hard time sending it back and contacting the manufacturer on most of those. So watch out for the warranty. That is one good way to find out if you're getting a really good bulb. And I'm not saying that some of these others aren't good, because I've had good success with some of them, but there's a lot of bad stuff out there too. So watch out. If you come up with any suggestion or ideas, I've had a few. I've had a couple guys that told me that they drilled holes in theirs when they saw mine, and how I took care of that. And I think it does help the longevity. So when you have a new bulb, that take a good look at it and see how well that air really can dissipate from inside any closed areas, especially where that printed circuit board is on those. If that thing is completely sealed in, there's a good chance that thing has a hard time getting that heat out of there, and that'll really shorten the life of that. So kind of watch for that when you buy your LEDs. I think it'll make a big difference in what you buy and the quality you'll end up getting and how long it'll last. Heaven knows, I'd rather they brought back the incandescent bulb. I'll tell you the truth. At this point, all of these others, I would be very happy with nothing more than a good old-fashioned incandescent bulb in most circumstances. So maybe someday they'll bring them back when we realize this thing about climate change and all that. I don't know if the light bulb is really worth it at this point. I don't think they've got the technology really, and the standards. That's the other thing they're not doing, is they're not really giving any good standards, making these people that sell this stuff have some kind of responsibility for warranting it. And until that happens, I think you got to watch out. So, and this is true of a lot of other things, not just LED. This is some of my thoughts on that, though, because anytime I can get an edge on what I'm buying and really whether it'll work or not, it's nice to hear what you guys have to say about it. Real quick, there's a Benjamin Nelson channel out there. I just started watching it. If you're into any battery or electronic stuff, it is a great channel. So I'll leave a link to his channel in my description, and I think I'll put him on my feature, so that if you go to my channel, my YouTube channel, just look at the features and he'll be in there. He's a lot bigger channel than this one, but he really has some good, helpful information out there. In particular about LED lights is what turned me on to him, and his knowledge about that and how to make light fixtures. So I'll let you check him out if you're interested. In the meantime, thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. Leave your comments and your thoughts. If you like this video or you learned something here, hit that like button. Lets me know I'm doing something right. Most importantly, though, please come back again, because I'm nowhere near done. Thanks. We'll talk to you guys again very soon. It won't shut off.